After being unceremoniously booted off of the January 6th Select Committee in the House of Representatives, Congressman Jim Jordan decided to hold a little press conference where he actually went ahead and said he knows who's to blame for the January 6th insurrection. And he said it was the Democrats. Those doggone Democrats, the same ones that just kicked him off the committee, are the ones who are to blame for what happened that day. And here is how he explained it. This is a direct quote from Jim Jordan in his press release. My answer is because what all happened last year. The Democrats normalized anarchy. They normalized rioting and looting and rioters and looters, attacks on law enforcement personnel when rioters and looters destroyed small businesses. What did Democrats did? I think it's supposed to be what did Democrats do, sorry. Anyway, they went out and raised money to bail them out of jail, and they continued to talk about defunding the police. Sure, that's the same thing as sending a gaggle of wackos with horned helmets into the Capitol to steal things like Nancy Pelosi's laptop. You know, to roam the halls chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Yeah, Jim, those are two totally connected events, right? The truth is the Democrats did not, in fact, normalize anarchy. What we saw last summer with the protests following the death of George Floyd, that was not anarchy. The real anarchy came from law enforcement officials at the time. You know, we sat here and discussed the fact that they had law enforcement officers, federal law enforcement officers, driving around in unmarked vans, snatching people off the street, driving them off to God knows where. They shoved an elderly man down where he cracked his skull on the concrete when he fell backwards. Hell, we saw just this week shooting protesters with rubber bullets at point-blank range. You want to talk about anarchy? How about you start looking at law enforcement officials across the country, Jim? But that would run counter to your narrative, right? And by the way, if there were members of Congress calling for defunding the police, which there were a few, there were only a few. This was not a Democratic platform. In fact, the establishment of the Democratic Party attempted to distance themselves from this talking point, even as Republicans like Mr. Jordan here attempted to hang it around their necks because they believed it would help them politically. But even if the Democrats had fully endorsed everything that happened last summer, it still would not have been an excuse for what happened on January 6th. Jim Jordan is engaging in classic deflection right here. He knows that the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th were Republicans. They were Trump supporters. They loved Donald Trump just as much as Jim Jordan did. They went in there, they caused chaos, they threatened lives. Remember, "Hang Mike Pence" was the chant for some of them. They stole items, they broke parts of the building, and they caused lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, to flee for their lives. They feared for their lives, Jim. Your colleagues, your brothers and sisters in the Republican Party, one of them hiding on Kevin McCarthy's toilet, holding an old Civil War sword that he found hanging on a wall. These aren't made-up stories, Jim, and they have nothing to do with what happened last summer. These were crazed individuals sent into a frenzy by that Stop the Steal rally earlier in the day, and this is what they did. Democrats are not to blame for any of this, Jim, but your party certainly is. Ring of Fire has fresh content 7 days a week, so if you want to be reminded about it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell to be notified every time a new video goes up.